Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to a Wolfram language design review. I think this is the tail end of some version 14 uh, review of part of our language completeness and consistency series. All right, first up is a pet peeve of mine for a while, which I'm looking forward to seeing a great new version of. This is the formatting drum roll. I want to see this. Oh. Is this what we agreed, this superscript thing?
It's pretty close to what we agreed. Uh, you suggested that we stick it in actually in the circle, but I'm both worried about the scalability of that, even more than I'm worried about the scalability of this. And, at 100% magnification, it's pretty hard to read the
I
four.
see. My only question is, would it not make more sense to have it be on the other side of the circle? Given that then it would look more like a fourth root type thing. Do we have design folk here? Do we have Jeremy here?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
here, but I can't speak to like fourth root.
No, I understand. But look, let me show you what we're emulating, okay? So if I do, gosh, how do I get that in, I'd say X, and I do the root. How do I get to the root position?
You,
Control
and then Control 5 to get to the.
Okay. So that's the way that a fourth root is portrayed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but it's the root. I mean, but it's not necessarily a fourth. Oh, right, it's a root of a fourth order polynomial. I mean,
Yeah, right. I mean, it's slightly, but to me, this look, it's like it's to the power 4. Whereas if it was, I mean, if somebody could just mock this, of just trying to put, my idea was, okay, my idea was to have the 4, look, let's see if I can do it. Okay, so this was my idea, to take this, take that thing. I don't know whether I can do this, but let's just make a canvas. Am I going to be able to do this? This may be beyond my abilities here, but I was thinking that we would put the 4 crossing the circle, like in
yeah,
there.
I just think that's crazy, both from an implementational point of view and from a readability point of view. I mean, right, you've blown that up to what font size?
Oh, okay. So I mean, let me unblow it. I mean, uh,
I mean, you're already at 125% magnification.
okay, Jeremy, what
No, I mean that was the mock was an overlay, but I think I had it on the right, and you need to add a glow or something behind the
can we
text
see that
so
mock?
it would work. Let me find it.
Right. And I mean, don't forget that, this can easily be, 100 or 1,000. I mean,
How do I get? Is there a way we could have click to copy for this thing here?
possibly, although why would you want it? I mean, you can just select it and copy.
I don't know. And the font here is really ugly. But other than that, and we don't usually have. I mean, that's a code font. Why the heck do we have a comment in a code font? But I like this functionality in general.
Okay. Well, because I was focused on content and not getting every single detail, styling detail right.
Okay, but that's what we're here for. So let's just agree.
Right. Well, you asked why, and I was answering your question.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Fine. And so this thing. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mailed that mock if you want to take a look at it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the previous one with the overlay.
But it would have to. Really think it should go on the left. Do we have other mathy people here?
I kind of agree. The left looks kind of more reasonable. I mean, this looks like you said, to the power 4. Yeah.
Jeremy, could we? Okay, Itai.
Right. Well, so
Implementation
let me point out that, for transcendental equations, I put infinity.
I
So
know.
it certainly wouldn't make sense on the left. So we would
Oh,
either
no. I don't see that that's bad on the left. I think it's fine on the left. I think it's rather lovely.
the infinitieth root, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I think that nothing makes sense, but the infinity is a nice idea.
Well, it makes sense on the right because we're talking about an infinite degree polynomial, right? An analytic function is just an infinite degree polynomial.
I understand that, but that's why I think it makes sense in the left, because it's a root of an infinite degree polynomial. So it's kind of like the infiniteth root, because you're trying to get down to that value in a polynomial with this x to the infinity plus whatever.
Okay.
I mean, but I have a different question, which is big numbers here. Do you have examples of that?
So I don't have very big numbers. I have
oh, there's 50. Okay.
There's 50. Right. And you can see already at 50, right? I mean, you couldn't fit that in the circle.
No, I understand that. We need a solution here. I just don't think, I think my immediate response was it's to the power 4 here, which just seems wrong. Okay, implementationally, let me just ask you this. If we were trying to do this overlay thing, is it easy to implement, or is it like unbelievably hard to implement?
I think an overlay would be pretty difficult to implement. Unless we, unless we did like 1 through 9 and then 10 plus, and right, it's.
Go ahead, John. Can you comment? Is John here?
Yeah, I'm here.
So can you comment on how one would do this with an overlay box or whatever?
So you want to overlay the number? Sorry, I'm confused. Are you talking centered now, or left or right, or what are you talking about?
Let's just say on the left, but mostly overlaid over the circle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, essentially, yes, it can be done with overlay and spacer quite reasonably. Spacer or invisible, either one. But I think Itai's concern is that getting it to look really, really good for an arbitrary digit length, he's concerned about.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I guess if I can leak into the left like that, then that's less of a concern.
I like this a lot, meaning wise. Devendra, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I totally agree. This looks more correct. And if you can't see it at large enough numbers, I think that's okay. I mean, people don't write root objects for 10th or 12th roots even, so 3rd, 4th is.
I think 2 digits is enough. I think if we went beyond 2 digits, I'd be perfectly happy to just see a dot there or something like that.
Yes, and I think because that's the kind of people whom we are trying to cater to with this type setting, so I think that's fine. But I really like I think I liked Itai's design overall, but this one aspect, I think, change to the left it also gets out of the way of the numbers, basically the actual decimal approximation over there.
So one thing to say just about the tweaks around this specific, or exactly what we're looking at is so for the, I mean, in this case, it's really covering up the circle. The best that the front end can do well, without going deep into hackery, is going to be, essentially the black box rectangle around those digits. So this looks actually like it's even a bit tighter than that, and I'm not sure it would be quite that tight, if you understand my meaning.
And is it obvious that we don't want to just make this a piece of graphics?
Well, I mean, like create like 2 through 9 or whatever,
No, I was thinking that we render it as graphics. Maybe that's stupid.
Right. Well, I mean, that is a graphics, right? The circle is a graphics, and I mean,
So I mean, then
I could either attempt to put, the 4 on top of it, or integrate it as a text directive inside of.
I think it should be a text directive inside the graphics. To me.
Okay.
I think that's a much more likely, so long as there's no rendering time issue.
And so it would be a directive that it either has a background, or there would be an additional rectangle to
make it obscure the circle.
Yes, and the additional rectangle is problematic because you need to measure exactly the size of the fonts.
John, wouldn't a glow or something like that work? Yeah, I don't think you need
one of our modern
background.
Well, I mean, the problem is that glow is in order to do it enough to get the entire inside of the 0, it might go farther than you want outside of the 0, if you know what I mean.
And doesn't it like use the GPU and crazy stuff like that?
What is this? I'm sorry. I guess I'm behind the times. Can somebody explain to me what glow is?
Like drop shadowing in that family.
It's a pixel shading effect.
I see.
Yes, you're behind the times. Wait a minute. Why is this not?
Yeah.
Do I have to put it in a graphics?
And it's not glow. It's halo.
Hello, where is it? Do I say in text primitive there?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
You said a background.
That's not the way you use drop shadowing. Just open the documentation.
Oh, it's a directive inside of
it's like red.
Yeah.
Why does this open in the web documentation?
Because you probably don't have the 14.1 documentation installed yet, right? It's a prototype.
Yeah, you only got the 14.1 builds installed this morning, so I'm not surprised you don't have the documentation. I'll mention that to Roger.
Okay. Why doesn't anything go yellow here? Sorry, I'm just worrying about this. So that's yellow in that case.
It's because of the mismatched brackets. This is
I understand it, but I lose everything as soon as that. But why is this not yellow?
Because you have unbalanced brackets, and this is a feature in the prototype build.
No, I'm aware. I know what this is. I'm confused by why. I mean, this may explain some things that I've been utterly confused by in the way that this whole. So I mean, this is still yellow.
Yes, because you have balanced brackets. And you have balanced brackets. Now, if you delete one of those brackets, things will start turning not yellow.
I see. But I get back to yellow. This is nice. Now I understand this better, John.
Okay.
This is really not bad. And I like the effect of having, I see the pink goes with the pink of this.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
This is quite nice. Wow. Good idea. Okay. In any case, that wasn't what we were looking for here, but what we're looking for here is some okay, that was very small there, but you get the message. Right, it's just a different form of shadowing, haloing, whatever else it is. Oh, and I like the fact that when it goes red, to what extent is this consistent when it goes red from a syntax error? Is that consistent with the pinking? Okay, so that's pink.
Yeah.
And now let me try and evaluate it. And what was now it's re-pinked. I mean that pink is the same pink that I had before, or that's now a different pink from
You
the
know,
other?
it probably isn't
No,
exactly
that's
the
more of a
same.
red.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But this behavior is not new.
No, I know
but
that's not new, but
yeah.
I'm saying it could be consistent with the thing. Okay, so that's now. I don't understand. Okay, so that's pink. And then when it's errored out, go ahead.
Yeah, it seems right that it's not quite aired out yet, right? You're still
Yeah,
editing, you can fix it. It's not quite set in stone that it's a problem.
I agree. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, any way you slice it, this isn't going into 14. There's more subtlety than what we've covered here, and I wanna make sure that
Oh.
we've plumbed the depths of it.
I'm sad because I think it's really nice. Okay, in any case, we'll get some version of this. I think beyond 2 digits, I mean, do we try and go to 3 digits maybe? And then, I mean, algorithmically, beyond 2 digits, are we still swimming, or is this thing like grinding to a halt when it gets beyond about 2 digits in the exponents?
what do you mean by this thing?
I mean root objects. If
Do
I had
you
a
mean-
root object with...
Do you mean grinding on the rendering of it,
No,
or do you mean
I mean in
something
the
else?
algorithmic side of it.
Okay.
In other words, is it realistic?
you can go up to millions. I mean, we have examples with degree million root objects.
Okay. Well, then I think we need something. What would be our overflow thing? I mean, I think the infinitive for the transcendental is kind of cool, but what is our large but finite? Is it dot dot? Is it a single digit dot dot? Is it
N?
nah?
Yeah,
There might be
I
a lot
was
of
thinking it would just be like whatever our cutoff is. If our cutoff is 99, then we'll then have a greater than 99 as the
That
object.
seems arbitrary. What about, okay, question. And this is a math question. I mean, what's more important, the first digit or the last digit in the exponent?
The first. I mean, oh, starting from the left, you mean, like.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you want to get a sense of
I
order.
don't. No, I think what's actually important, the two things that are important are either the number of digits or the last digit, because it certainly matters if it's an even or odd
Yes, that I
order.
agree. Yeah.
Just knowing that the first digit is 3, but not knowing if that's 30 or 30,000 is
Fine. I think odd
I
even.
wonder if we could have something like 1 dot dot 4, or whether that would be even more confusing. Or we could have like dot dot 5.
right. Yeah, we could have dot dot 5, or I don't know that we want to go that big. We could do sort of a short style, first digit, number of missing digits.
Yeah, that's too complicated. I don't think we need that.
Okay. Yeah,
I think we should go. Okay. So let's. All right. So I think we've agreed what that's going to look like. Now let's talk about this.
I was going to say, do we need the circle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought of that too.
Yes, we need it.
Okay.
It's a branding thing, because it isn't exactly a root, and it's not, you're not taking the root of this thing. It's just an iconic element.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about this. This is fine, but okay. So first it says root here.
Right.
I don't understand. Yeah, go ahead.
The reason for that is that there are at least 2 different heads that will use that icon. And we're going to be using a similar sort of styling, although with a different icon for finite field. So my thought was that we would have a heading with the head, just much like we do in information and whatnot. And then, details. So for example, if you looked at one of the system of equation things, then you'll see that my sentence does not start with capital root.
Yeah, okay, but I understand that. I guess I'm asking, I was sort of thinking this would be a raft of some kind that just says, I mean, I just don't understand why this wouldn't be click to copy here, because that's the main event of I want the polynomial out of this thing, minimal polynomial.
I mean,
What else could I want from it, from this root object? The degree, the minimal polynomial. Those are the things, right?
For if it's a polynomial, then those are probably the things you want, yes.
If it's a transcendental expression, what do I want then?
Then you might want the multiplicity. If it's a root cluster, you might want to have the computed approximate location.
But presumably I can get that from n.
Well, you can get the equation using first, right? I mean,
yeah, but I don't want to do
your
that.
whole
Okay,
objection.
so look,
your whole objection was that you that you didn't want to do this programmatically.
Well, I want to know how to do it programmatically. I didn't know how to do it programmatically. I had no idea that I could just use first on this. Most, raw objects don't let you just use first.
It's not a raw object.
Well, I didn't know that. Looks like a raw object, walks and talks like one, but it isn't a raw object. Okay, so it's all right. Normally with summary boxes, don't we have kind of like a more tabular thing, like equation, colon?
Right. So that's the alternate styling that's a few rows above that I only did for the polynomial case, which is, I didn't think it would necessarily scale as well. But if you think this is a better look, I can go in this direction.
What other things other than univariate polynomial?
There's univariate polynomial, there's transcendental equation, there's transcendental, well, it's the 5 things that are listed there, right? Transcendental equation, transcendental root cluster.
Well, sorry, where is, oh, I see.
Triangular polynomial system and system of transcendental equations.
What the hell are these here?
Those are the 2 polynomials that make up the triangular system.
And why isn't that just in a list?
Because I thought, well, if they're large, I think the scale's better.
Only if you can click to copy them. I mean, I don't want to have to go and click and this and then that and assemble that and so on. Okay, I strongly prefer this, but the fonts are wrong.
Okay.
I mean, Jeremy, we've done so many of these things like this before. I mean, we tend to use the sans text font, right, for these kinds of things. Am I right?
It's on mute, but yeah, I used it in that first case we looked at under alternate styling. I mean, so we just apply that visual style, I think. That looks like source with a.
No, but this is, we normally use some kind of Helvetica-like, compact font, not this kind of code font. We don't want a code font. We certainly don't want a code font for a piece of text here. We can have a code font for this, but I mean,
okay.
This is not hard, guys. It's really not hard.
And summary boxes, I think we always use code font.
Not for labels though. Should be source sans pro for labels.
Okay. It's possible. It's been a while since I've dug into those.
Just text font.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why we're not just going vertical for everything here.
Going vertical for everything.
I don't know why we have this vertical pass. I think that's a mistake. I think it's just going to be confusing. You know,
Okay.
given that, but
Well,
I
I
think,
just thought it would be, wasteful, especially if you think the main event is the polynomial.
well,
But
okay, fair enough. I mean, all right, okay, I
But-
agree.
but-
This is reasonable. This is reasonable. It's just that this is such an ugly font. It put me off.
okay.
This looks okay to me.
Okay.
But I mean, in the case of something, but everything should be labeled, and I think it should have click to copy.
Okay.
There's no real reason it doesn't.
Well, I mean, and if the polynomial is huge, you don't want to manually try to select it to copy anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
actually, that reminds me of something that crossed my mind earlier. Is there ever a case where the polynomial is so huge we may not want to show it in its entirety?
I think yes. Right?
Yes. There probably is. I don't know what that case is. Well, you can click on my degree 50 polynomial there. Right. I mean, that's
that's not highly useful.
Yeah, so there might be some kind of size limiter, iconized type thing that once again would have a click to copy around it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where the click to copy is really the main event. Okay. Finite fields.
Right. So this is taking basically the existing object, but applying this styling to it, which is what we right. And if we want to switch to the more summary boxy style, that's easy enough to do.
Yeah. I think this is basically good, and I think this is much more compact. I don't remember what we had before, but this is much more compact than that.
Yeah. Well, if you copy that into another notebook, it'll go to the current styling and.
Oh yeah, this is unbelievably much better, the new
Okay.
one. However, I'm wondering if there's any way we can sort of separate off. I wonder whether we could have a vertical separator inside the lozenge box here between the F3 and the 2. Which we effectively have in this case by having the circle around the thing. But I'm just suggesting you know what I'm saying, a vertical.
Yeah, just a pipe like I was using above.
Yeah, except that I think it should span the from floor to ceiling.
Okay, depending on how that's, well, I might need to change my implementation in order to do that, but okay, so if you literally want it from floor to ceiling, I don't know how to do that because if I were to put a grid box in there inside the frame box,
how can we do this?
Yeah, sorry, my attention wandered a bit. What do you mean by floor to ceiling?
From the lower to the upper.
Sorry, you want what from floor to ceiling?
I want a separator line that's blue or
okay. Yeah, so Itai, you should talk to Lou. This is not easy. He's done things that are a bit like it, and it's he can tell you the hacks to make this work.
Right. I mean, right. The point is that it's a right. There's a frame box there with a rounded corner. So even if we were to stick to a grid, then it won't get all the way to the top.
Jeremy, does it need to get all the way to the top and bottom?
Or if it's the full height of the.
Yeah, I think if it's very close, it's fine. I don't think it's not going to kill us to miss a pixel or two there.
Well, and I think it might be possible to glue two frame boxes together. And you can individually control the rounding on frame box corners.
Okay.
Now, that may, if selectability is an issue, that's going to mess up selectability, but of the contents. but there are options. We can figure it out.
All right. Ready to go on to the next item?
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, I did what was easy to do in terms of the with coloring. There is a hard thing. This is like, a half a day's work and I knocked out 90% of it, but the remaining 10% is, a multi-day project. Which is that, just to be clear, that in that first example, the A on the right-hand side should have been green because it's being scoped because the A in the second argument is being scoped by the A in the
that as
first
two
argument.
nested widths, right? If you copied that first input and in the second argument add a width bracket and then
Yeah, so that is the correct coloring, but getting, the front end's syntax highlighting system is fragile, and getting this sort of thing to work requires real effort. But what we're proposing is that we've got this much working, and that while it's, in some fundamental sense it's not correct, it might be good enough to finally
document
get
for
var art
4.1,
without
14.1.
or even 14.0.
I'm not going for it. I don't like this very much. I really think we should try and get this right. I think this is very confusing. When I write code and I have blue variables in there, it bothers me a lot. This is one of my few places where I can kind of make sure things are scoped correctly. I really don't think it should get blown up like this. I mean, I'm sorry. I wish it was.
Well, I mean, you don't have to apologize, except that you left a very distinct impression that compromises were acceptable when we last talked about this. And
I did not internalize just what level of compromise this was. I mean, in other words, I really don't think this is a good idea to leave something blue here. I mean, even if you could turn it black, I'd be happy. But I doubt you can do that.
It would, by the time I could do that, I could turn it any
green.
color I want.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I think we should plan on this for 14.1 and we should try and get it right. I just don't think we should let people have something where, we've gone to so much trouble. And by the way, I mean, this case here, I would like to see some of those things red. I mean, that's clearly wrong.
Well, but it's not red. I mean, why would it be red?
Because it's wrong. Because
why is it wrong?
Because you can't have a with just an X there.
Well, sure, but we don't have that level of coloring.
Yes, we do. We have plenty of coloring like that.
No, we don't. Give me one example.
Doesn't plot color like that? Doesn't. Well, we should have that coloring. I mean, this is not probably for this meeting. It's probably for the user assistance discussion. But it would be great if that colored red. That would catch errors I've made.
Right, and we do have some coloring about single equals versus double equals.
Yes.
But
I'm just saying.
But it's I have filed bug reports about how incredibly fragile and buggy to the point.
Okay, fine, but it's better than nothing. And the fact is that the error that is, the current with error of saying with, x equals 1, x, y, that should turn red, and it does in the previous version. And, because that should be x semicolon y. And I mean, I think we're losing something by not having that turn red. And it should turn red. I mean, this case, look, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry. This says this is not turning red because because
I know, but I'm saying we know that the syntax for with is brace symbol equals blah. It has to be that. If it isn't that, it should turn red.
Well, and so I'll just take that as a given here. But you know, as a more general note, I mean, this is the sort of thing where you know, I'm pretty good with our language, but I don't spend all of my time language lawyering all the details. And there's, you know, there are cases where it's not clear to me where, you know, I mean, like, for example, the second argument of plot is typically a list, but the language,
but you can pass something in.
But you can find ways to write legitimate plot statements that work without that. And you know, I'll just take what you're saying as a given for with, but for anything else, I mean, there's a certain level of language lawyering that I would need some assistance with.
Okay, this is
and I just put
nice
something in the chat. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry about the ins and outs, but yep. So my point is it's possible to programmatically create a correct with. Yep.
Yep. I mean, this is where user assistance should be going, is being able to tell whether you're doing this or whether you're doing this. I mean, yeah, you can programmatically feed things in. And, you know, I mean, that's the question.
Right. So you can't unconditionally color that.
I know, but the fact is it's 99% of the time it's a mistake. And that's what we're doing. That's the whole point of syntax coloring. You know, do we think that this is, I mean, I think it's worth, I don't know. And, you know, if we had a mechanism to switch off the syntax coloring, in other words, if it came up red and we had a raft essentially, which said like spell correction, turn off the syntax coloring.
Well, we do have you know, various syntax colorings are exposed in the preferences dialog.
No, I know, but that's way too global. Way too global. I mean,
well,
about...
but in some cases, people have wanted global. I mean, people have wanted, for example, to say, no, every time I put a single equal in the first argument of if, I don't ever want to hear about that again.
I know.
Because that's my style.
But I think it's much more common that people are going to want to do this. And that will be a really nice feature. I mean, in other words, we would be able to do a lot more reddening if we had a mechanism like spell correction to kind of ignore that reddening. See what I'm saying?
So, I mean, there's a philosophical issue around this, which is, I mean, fundamentally, there are two ways to be looking at code. One is code as boxes, and the other is code as symbolic expressions.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it's difficult to make changes in the front end syntax highlighting is because the front end syntax highlighting
operates on boxes.
Can only look at boxes.
Yep.
And so.
And in part, there are times that's the only possible thing because you're in the middle of typing things, so there is no expression.
It's not, right, exactly.
Whereas, for example, the static analysis story is looking at symbolic expressions.
I'm aware.
And so, yeah, I mean, we have to think about how much work we're willing to invest in looking at things at boxes where, you know, getting something to work is just like 10 times as much effort.
I know.
I'm not saying that to specifically disagree with a specific proposal you were making.
Okay,
I'm just
John,
saying there is a general issue.
I would like to make the following comment. If it came through asynchronously, like spell checking does, and reddened this on an asynchronous pass, I'd be perfectly happy. Right, once the expression is complete, do an asynchronous pass, or once this section of the expression is complete. In other words, you clearly know, you're admitting you know, because you're yellow or you're pink. Right, so in the case where it is yellow, then do an asynchronous pass. Is that crazy?
Well, I mean, that's where we talked about taking the static analysis story, but static analysis is presently underpowered in development resources. So,
right, which we need to talk about separately, but that's a different issue. But I think that's what I would do. I mean, if it is so much harder, I think it is more. Okay, 2 points. First of all, the ability to switch off a reddening. And second of all, I think that really opens up a lot of opportunities. And second of all, the asynchronous pass. Sandra on our live stream is asking about an obvious question in a nested with the same variable. I think that's okay. I don't see a problem with that.
Right, that's
Everybody
no
agree?
different. That's no different from if you did two. Or would that not work?
I actually don't know what would happen if you did it with the proper nested widths.
Well, let's find out.
Yeah, that could probably break. You did it with nested widths. Unless
it does not break. The front end does syntax highlight it.
So the internal renaming mechanism recognizes them as local variables, and yeah. So then I think the behavior is fine. Right, because those are at the same level of scoping. So I think this behavior is entirely sensible.
Okay.
But that raises actually another subtlety in terms of the ideal with syntax highlighting. The ideal with syntax highlighting would, in the case that Sander raises, would color the second A red as an advisory that you're doing something maybe you didn't intend.
Which I don't think is bad.
Exactly as with the nested case that's on screen.
I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, I think you are doing something wrong if you duplicate the variables, even if it works. And I'm surprised that it works. I'm surprised it didn't become with 3 equals 4.
And there are lots of these scope conflict cases where a thing quote works, but the purpose of the syntax highlighting is you may not realize what you just did.
And I would compare it to the case where I say with A equals A, because A is a module variable. But now I need to inject it into a held expression.
Yeah, right.
And so I like saying with A equals A because I'm making it clear that I'm injecting it, but the A in the width variable turns red because it duplicates a module variable.
Right. Right. Okay. Let's keep going here.
Okay. Well, so I mean that's one thing that tells me is so I guess I'll just keep this out as an unmerged branch then until until more work goes into it.
I think we need to
and
I think we need to do more work there. But I really do think these two mechanisms
people can continue to blame me for not having Varag with. So
sadly,
there you go.
I think the work is important, and I think that this, the things we just described are, worthwhile directions. All right, let's quickly try and talk about co-identity. He says.
Right. So this was a suggestion from Nick. And which you can see there. It's the thing which, when eaten by anything, gives the head. So Ian sort of mentioned that right, so just like identity and composition commute with F goes to map of F, then co-identity and this co-composition operation, he commute with the mapping between, X and co-mapping stuff onto X.
Okay, so let's just remind ourselves. So co-map of Fx like this goes to this.
Yep.
Okay, so what is co-composition?
So co-composition is the thing that it's defined right there.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, to me, this is part of the family of issues of sort of head-related patterning or nested, because we don't have, just like we have double blank to represent an arbitrary sequence of arguments, we don't really have anything to represent f of f of f of f of f any number of nested times, which seems like it's related to this, or am I wrong? I mean, this would give us that. I mean, in other words, this isn't quite that. What is, if I were to say, let me just go ahead and do this. Well, actually, I'm not even sure I can do this, but I mean, if I were to say f blank of co-composition of x double blank, what the heck would that do? Or is that irrelevant? What would that be defined as? I mean, isn't that an arbitrarily nested?
It would be something like, F at reverse of list. Well, no, not even that.
No, it isn't that. It's like a fold, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
Well, it's, as a pattern, it would be like inert, right? It would evaluate immediately. But if you hold this pattern, then it's just gonna be, well, whatever it is. Co-composition doesn't do anything useful here.
Okay, but I mean, what I'm looking for is something that is a pattern that matches f of x of f. Okay, so let's say I wanted to match f of x, 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 x. How would I match that pattern? What is that pattern? Or that's one pattern, or f of f of f of f of f of f, whatever it is, of x.
Right. And, I don't think co-composition or co-identity have much to say about this.
I had something like this implemented in the patterns. I think I called it deep pattern or something like this. So that you can, it's more related to the repeated, but you go in depth rather than in width of your expression.
Yes. I mean, it's like kind of like head repeated. Does that make any sense?
Well, it doesn't have to be a head, I think. Just any expression.
Well, but then
you kind of construct.
Right. I mean, head repeated would match one of those, but not the other, right? In one case, you have a repeated head, in the other, you have a compound head of, repeated sub-valueness or something.
But we don't have a pattern for this. We don't have a pattern for either of these things.
No.
Okay, but you say that's irrelevant to co-identity.
Correct, because co-identity, just like map, just like default map lives at level 1 and co-map by default lives at level 1, so does co-identity and identity.
Okay, so if I say map identity onto x and y, I get x and y.
Yep.
And are you saying that if I co-map co-identity?
Second argument. So you'd have like list FG. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And I don't think that either Ian or I are clamoring for this, but, it is something that can exist given.
Okay, so that's the minimal case, right? Which is maybe what you were giving there.
Yep.
Anybody who thought they were dealing with traditional math functions, which they better not have, because transformation rules for symbolic expressions aren't really that. That will be deeply blown up. And okay, anybody know in the category theory world, is this the thing? If F is a morphism, this is kind of objectifying the morphism somehow. If that makes sense, turning the morphism into an object.
Right. Well, it's right. It's looking at the, it's looking at the functionals, element goes to F applied to element. And this is sort of the identity functional for that.
Right.
This is an argument-based head extractor.
Yes.
It's a very weird object.
So
Right.
what would be f of co-identity comma 1? Exactly what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I'll point out this is possible because you can have more than one argument, but you can't have more than one head.
Indeed.
Because our expressions are trees, not DAGs.
Yep.
Right, and that returns unevaluated, just like f of identity would return unevaluated.
Right. That's the same. That's the co of this.
Yep.
And
scam likely.
The what? Is there a way? Because identity of identity gives you, you know what I'm saying? Identity of identity gives you identity. What's the co-version of that?
So what you're doing there is you're saying composition of identity, comma identity, right?
Yep.
If you did co-composition of co-identity and co-identity, that's the co of that.
All right. What's a use case for this creature?
Right, so Nick came up with that one use case, which is the final bullet point. I don't know if that's really that compelling.
Yeah, it's not very common, but the idea is just every time you have this kind of active property, just returns the same kind of object. It may be useful. It's like whether you have to mutate it or you don't, if you have some condition. So like usually in the usual case with identity, I often write like if some condition satisfies, I do something, and if it doesn't, I just apply identity.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, so that's
less
a
common.
use case for co-identity. I'm unaware of a use case for co-composition, which is like feed in arguments one at a time.
Right, but co-identity, what's really weird is this is returning a head. It's one thing to return the argument. Nothing happened. It's just identity. It just passes through. But to return a head, that's really weird.
Agreed.
I think this is for WFR for right now. I think it's worth us, when we really are feeling very sort of theoretically inclined, I think we should consider both these cases here and multi-level up values, and whether there's a way to represent those. And these are somewhat related, I claim. Because by the time you have these stacks, head stacks, if you could patternify a head stack, you are effectively patternizing, something which would, because an up value, you could think of as blank, of f of, let's see, what am I thinking of? Yeah, I mean, you can think about it as some kind of pattern for the head stack, can you not?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think I should run off here, but I think
Okay.
this is not a thing for right now, although we should WFR both co-identity and co-composition because they are interesting language constructs, and it's a great exercise for thinking about this, but not for right now.
Okay.
But before
Okay,
you
right.
finish, I have one other micro point about the width highlighting.
Yep.
I was just writing this up for my notes, and I realized that if you want red highlighting, you don't want to, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. I don't think you ever want to highlight the final argument. What you want to highlight is things that aren't the final argument, that aren't list of assignments.
Yep, I agree.
And so in your, like with A, B, C, D, you would highlight A, B, and C as red. The D would not be red.
That's what I think. Yeah, that's exactly what I think.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right. See you guys soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye.